Do you like movies and games also? This and so much more, they all know. Vyse, Pyro, Lotus and friends, welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Reactive Consciousness for February 2nd, 2017. I am your host, VyseTheBold, and this is
Lotus Prince.
PyroJackFrost.
Okay, and this is our sister podcast to Corrective Consciousness once again, our third episode in the series, and this is where we react to culturally and timely events. So, having said that, the first thing that I want to talk about this week is the fact that after a long time, Blade Runner is finally getting a sequel. It's actually happening. I don't know if anybody was able to see that. Did you guys see the teaser?
No, but
I did. When is the movie coming out?
It's coming out later this year, I believe in October.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't see the teaser, but I just know that a sequel is going to exist.
So what's cool about it is Ryan Gosling's going to be in it, and I think he's a very good choice for this type of character. Have either of you seen Drive?
No.
So that's kind of a neo-noir kind of movie. It's like he plays like a hitman in the movie that knows how to drive really well. He's also like a stunt car driver in his daytime. Mm-hmm. And so I think it fits along with cyberpunk and other types of neo-noirs and spin-offs of neo-noir. So I think that kind of like crime world descended from noir films in the 40s and 30s really resonates with the kinds of characters that he likes to play.
Well, that blends with noir quite well. That actually sounds pretty appropriate. But if you really like, for Blade Runner in particular, if you want to make it a proper sequel to it, you're going to need him to deliver like intentionally awful narration and then have like 5 different cuts of the movie.
7, actually.
Are you kidding me?
There are 7. So having said that, what I want to get into here is actually I did a ton of research on Blade Runner. So for longtime listeners of Corrective Consciousness, they will know that I do cinema studies talks in my spare time at the local library. And this is they're focused at adult, focused on adult understanding of cinema studies, and I try to pick films that are relevant to the current time period, which I'm showing them. So back when I started the project, I did Jaws because it was the summertime, but the library couldn't get its stuff together, so we didn't do our first presentation until October. So by that point, they wanted a horror movie, like a more horror movie. You know, like Jaws is a horror movie, but it's not very Halloween-y. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing Ridley Scott's Alien, and so I really enjoyed doing that one, and I talked about it I talked about both movies in length. But after a few months here, especially with the holidays going by, we had to put it on hold for a little while, so people can actually attend it. So the first Alien one actually was good and bad in some ways. I was very happy with the product that I made and the research that I did. However, I only had one audience member, and it was one of my friends.
Although ironically, that might have been for the best, because your description of not your content, but the nature of the presentation in terms of like the materials they had or did not have prepared for you was like a total shit show.
It was a technical disaster, and none of it was my fault. In fact, the only reason why we were able to progress was because I had contingency plans for every single thing that went wrong. So just to give you an idea, like the film, they told me that the film would be provided. It was not. I was told that I would have a Blu-ray player. I did not. Can
you imagine it, like, just if this went down normally, like they just don't have the movie that you're supposed to present. Like, what the hell? Are you really? Like, I mean, I know you said they didn't have the Blu-ray player either, but just the basic we'll get you the movie. We're a library. We probably have it. And they just didn't. Like, that blows my mind.
So what happened was I brought the movie. It was a Blu-ray version, but I couldn't play it because I brought my laptop just in case. So thank God. They had the projector, but the external audio wasn't working. Like the external speaker that they had, so we had to use like the onboard speaker, and it's pathetically weak against like the mechanical sounds of like a heater and things like that that were going on in the library. So you could barely hear the movie. It was just a technical disaster. Nobody came because they didn't advertise it well. So this time around, I actually have a ton of people, a lot more people confirmed. I shouldn't say a ton, but a lot more people confirmed. I have almost 10 people coming that I know of that are confirmed by me and me alone.
That's
I'm not
10
sure.
times the audience of last time.
That's
Yeah, you should bet on me. So
I will say I completely understand the technical difficulties, because there's been times when I've had to go into a school that's completely new to me to give some presentation, and either they're HDMI, they don't have an HDMI cable, or the audio doesn't work correctly, or I didn't realize that YouTube is blocked in that school, so I have to find some other way of getting the video to work.
Yeah, or this
usually
is the one day there's an internet glitch and everything you wanted to do is just inaccessible.
Yeah, which usually consists of me using a hotspot on my phone and using my own data just to
Yeah.
show YouTube.
So luckily, I actually have I'm going to use a lo-fi solution for this time around. I'm actually going to bring the Final Cut DVD of the film of Blade Runner.
Sure.
So a DVD is much more likely to work in any situation because they don't have the same digital rights management on them. So like your computer won't hate you nearly as much when trying to run it. So like Blu-rays have problems with going through HDMI connections and being projected and things like that because they're way too enforced, that kind of thing. But
just bring that weird little like $20 splitter.
But having said all that, I do want to talk about the film as much as I can here. So I'm going to kind of give a mini presentation for our fans and viewers. So I did want to state first of all that I think it's kind of funny that the reason why I picked this movie is because the sequel was just announced, and for the longest time Blade Runner didn't really have a legacy in terms of direct successors. It has 3 novel sequels that were unpopular and basically forgotten.
I think there's a point-and-click adventure game for like Windows NT.
Yeah. So that's actually another thing I was going to go over. It has 2 obscure video games based on it. One of which is that Westwood adventure game that you speak of, which is a very well-regarded game, but it is very obscure nowadays. And it's an interquel, or it's a game that takes place at the same time as the movie. Okay. So it's pretty cool because a lot of the actors reprise their roles from the movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's
so
always
it's
nice
actually
when they
like
can do stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not published on anything right now. It's one of the few like games that's kind of been left behind from that era that's considered very good. So it's kind of languished in abandonware websites and things like that. And I don't know if anybody remembers this movie, a Kurt Russell movie by Paul W.S. Anderson called Soldier.
I've seen parts. From what I saw, it looked pretty cool.
So that movie, that director's a hack, but he
Resident Evil final episode is out now. Thank
God.
God.
All the Resident Evil movies, which oddly enough, he's releasing his supposed last one right now.
Well, like the last 2 were also supposed to be his last ones, if I remember correctly.
Whatever. They keep making tons of money and they keep sucking.
Didn't he also do Mortal Kombat though? And that was actually good.
Yes, but it's supposed to be schlocky. But anyway.
Okay, yeah.
Like the video game is schlocky. The source material is schlocky. So
that's fair.
Making a movie that's also schlock is appropriate and great. But anyway, so Soldier is mostly forgotten. It's probably technically his best movie, in terms of like artistry. But nobody remembers that, and it was penned by the same one of the screenwriters of Blade Runner. So it supposedly takes place in the same universe as Blade Runner.
Oh, really?
There are very few references to Blade Runner that made it into the actual movie, except for there's a couple of the style of vehicle, the spinner, in the background in a few shots.
That's kind of cool.
So. But its most prevalent legacy for a long time has been its influence on other pop culture, like movies and like the cyberpunk genre in general is almost completely based off of it.
Yeah. Snatcher, that entire video game is just Blade Runner with a different title.
Yeah, I mean, any futurist hacking thing has basically been based off of Blade Runner. Even the seminal work in the cyberpunk genre, Neuromancer, is based off of ideas of the book that Blade Runner is based off of, called "Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep," which is a really good title for the movie as well. But you could tell why they changed it. Blade Runner is a cool sounding name.
And even Deus Ex, like, you yourself are like, I mean, you're not a robot, but you're a cyborg passing as human.
Yeah, so I actually bring up Deus Ex in the presentation.
Sweet.
So one of the things that I go over in it is what cyberpunk is, and I have a really good quote that I got off of TV Tropes that I think is like the best quote in exemplifying what cyberpunk is. So this is a quote from Stephen Lee Shepard. Transhuman is about how technology will eventually help us overcome the problems that we have, up until now, been endemic to human nature. Cyberpunk is how technology won't.
Oh, interesting.
So it's the flip side of what technology is supposed to be. Instead, I wrote, cyberpunk is the future that no one wants. Technological progression, yet social regression. An inherent pessimism that proclaims technology is not the cure for the human condition, but yet another complication.
Quite the way with words.
Thank you. Common themes in cyberpunk include urban decay, loss of humanity, artificial intelligences versus humanity, and it almost always comes up that artificial intelligence is the same thing as humanity. Like, if you are going to make something as smart as a human, you have to treat it as such. And if you do not, you will suffer because of it. Because it will find a way to either punish you or break away entirely and run away with it. It's unethical to treat it as submissive.
Yeah, even outside the cyberpunk genre, like sci-fi in general, whenever there's a super AI, things usually go badly when it's supposed to be restricted to, like, just being a computer that's really good at processing information. Like, it usually turns into, like, the mastermind behind the plot after a short period of time.
Yeah, I really wanted to play that game. I forget what it's called. Event Zero, I think, where it's along the lines of the computer doesn't know if it can trust you.
Oh, wow.
And
Oh,
it's
that sounds cool.
It's cool because you don't know if you should trust the computer either, but you basically talk to it with the command prompts, like just typing, and it has a way to be able to respond to you. It's like, those AIM chatbots.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
They up the ante on it, and it actually has different emotions it can convey.
That's
which
cool.
is
That's really cool. Well, I also said that hacking is a means of rebellion in this. It's one of the few things that the common man can do in order to fight back, because computers are such an integral part of how corporations and other leaders of society then control the population, that hacking is like one of the very few things that you could do to fight against it. There's also corporate dominance in a lot of cyberpunk culture. Corporations rule the world.
Yep.
There's criminal reign, and substance addiction is also very common. So not only so that's really an extension of noir tropes. Substance addiction as a means to cope with a world that wants to keep you submissive is very prevalent in noir. noir tropes. In almost every typical noir character, you have the gritty detective who is constantly drinking. He's constantly
smoking,
and smoking. Yeah, and so and in a lot of the books associated with it, like I was telling you guys before in one of the earlier Corrective Consciousness episodes. In the Red Harvest, there's even things like laudanum, which is an opiate.
Right.
Like the outside world takes its toll on the hero, the person who's supposed to be the purest of figures in this kind of world where politicians and big business people rule everything, and you have no way to fight against it. So in a lot of ways, trying to find the truth in these things is more damning than anything, and kind of just accepting your place in this society is the only way you actually have peace. Because trying to take down the powers that be is impossible. So one thing I also wrote was that the genre owes much to film noir, but with a future take. High-key lighting from neon cityscapes, endless night punctuated by corporate advertising, polluted rain, synthesized saxophone jazz, and corporate-backed crime and oppression. So these are all the things that make up cyberpunk, and Blade Runner is a founder in all of these things. And I really wanted to emphasize how influential this movie is in terms of visuals. Like when you look down at your laptop, let's say, with LED lighting underneath your underneath your keyboard, that's because of cyberpunk culture. Pretty much anything having to do with computers with LED lighting basically stems from Blade Runner's art design, which was made by Sid Mead. And he's also the guy who created the look of Tron. I don't know if
that makes sense.
If you guys knew
that's
this.
pretty on point.
He created the look of a lot of things. He did this U.S. Steel painting, like for what the future would look like and what U.S. Steel could produce in the 60s. And it looks like Star Wars directly ripped off the AT-AT design from it.
Oh, wow.
Directly. If I could show this to you guys, you'd be like, yes, absolutely.
I mean,
he created this in the 60s, and they used it in the Empire Strikes Back is from what
81 maybe, or 80.
81,
it's 80 or 81. Jedi, I think, was 81 or 80. But the point is,
no, that's 84, I think.
What, that late? Well, in any case, I mean, I think
they reach about 3 years apart.
Okay. I think they actually got the AT-AT designs from like. There's a picture, but like there are actual structures that you could see that from a distance look kind of like four-legged creatures, but that's not what they are at all. And like I think that's what it's from rather than the poster, but that would be an amusing coincidence.
You should take a look at it. You'll be like, oh yes.
Right.
Like in that Lotus Prince voice. Oh
yes.
But I also wanted to. This is. I'm gonna go over just one last thing. I wanted to talk about for anybody who's seen the movie. One of the big questions is Deckard a replicant, and I did want to talk about this because in the final cut they give you a little bit more evidence that he may be one, but they still leave it ambiguous.
Yeah, because I think I recall for the new movie they either mentioned that he isn't or kind of are pushing more that he's not.
Well, it's hard to say, and you could view the first movie as a work of art in its own right that has its own questions, and then like it doesn't. That's the way you should view movies with sequels. I think that you can view them as a whole in terms of a whole story, with its sequels. Or you can view them as individual works, and something like this and 2001: Space Odyssey, I prefer looking at the movies as individual works, because if you watch 2010, it completely changes some of the meanings of things in 2001. So with that, I think Blade Runner has so much of a legacy on its own and did not have a sequel for so long that you could still view it in a vacuum. So anyway, there is a point where the main character, played by Harrison Ford, his name is Deckard, has a dream about a unicorn while he's dozing, and at the end of the movie, Edward James Olmos's character has been making origami figures throughout the course of the movie to reflect what's been happening in the movie, and he leaves an origami unicorn outside of his door, implying that he knows about an implanted memory that Deckard has. So it implies that he may be a replicant. So my theory is that it doesn't matter. So even the creators of the movie do not agree on whether Deckard is a human or a replicant. Ridley Scott has stated that yes, he is, and more recently has come out and said, I don't want to answer that.
Maybe because they're going to mention it in the movie now, I don't know.
Well, I think that's
I know,
the
like you said, it doesn't
that,
matter, but...
That's the stance that the movie takes, right?
Well, speaking of the stance the movie takes, I mean, I think the point is that, like what you said earlier, if an AI is good enough to be human-like, then it may as well be considered a human. So, like, even if we do have an answer, it's kind of irrelevant because an answer still implies us versus them.
Correct. But I want to even go one step further in saying that the movie is not about what humanity is versus artificial intelligence, but instead of just that simple theme, it's more about the theme of obsolescence. So throughout the film, you see all these different things, all different kinds of forms of oppression on the human race. So the very first thing you see in the movie after an introduction is that there is pollution and on top of a huge cityscape. There is fire burning and gases being released. It is saying essentially that the human race is dying almost right away. So it doesn't matter that he is a replicant because we're all the replicants. We are all replicants. We are all being replaced. We are all dying. And the replicants, just as much as humans, are being phased out. And you can even see this in small ways in the film. So, for instance, English is no longer the dominant language in Los Angeles.
It's Chinese, isn't it?
It's a combination of a lot of different languages, actually. It's like Brazilian, or I guess Portuguese.
Yeah.
Portuguese, like Vietnamese, Japanese, and Chinese, I think. And English. And maybe even some Spanish in there, too. So, and, like, the first interaction that Deckard has with other people, he can't understand them. Like, he's trying to communicate in English and nobody understands him. So, also, all of the advertising in the movie is all these different companies primarily from Japan at the time. And at the time, there was a huge fear that Japan, during their economic bubble, was going to take over America as the dominant economic country. Just kind of like we have a similar fear of China right now. But not nearly. It was even more prevalent as a fear. It was like a fear that many people had. And for a while there, Japanese companies bought out a lot of prevalent American companies. So there are a lot of real companies shown in the background of this movie, which is also kind of ironic. Is that the companies that all have been shown in the background have pretty much all gone out of business. They've all become obsolete in reality, which is kind of fitting.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not ironic so much as it is, fitting and definitely coincidental. Ironic would have been like if all of them are still thriving today. It'd be like, whoa, really? Well, so much for that, Blade Runner.
Well, I think it's ironic in that they're not dominant. But anyway.
I get it. But I was thinking as far as fitting with the theme of the movie.
Yeah. So, the idea is that it doesn't matter whether he's a replicant or not. The only glimmer of hope in this kind of world is that an individual, whether they be a replicant or a human, has to come to peace with their own existence and the nature of their own existence and just live out their life as best they can. So that is my take on it. With any luck, they can be at peace. And the only immortality that you are supposed to have in this kind of world is by passing on ideas of philosophies and experiences to others. So I just wanted to talk about that because there's always this question of whether he's a replicant, and Harrison Ford thinks that he is a replicant, and the writer of the film thinks that he's a human. Actually, Harrison Ford thinks he's a human. I'm sorry. So Harrison Ford thinks he's a human, and David Peoples thinks that he's a human, and Ridley Scott has gone on record saying that he's a replicant, and now he's kind of revised his thought and said that it's open to question. And the stance of the movie is that it's open to question because it doesn't definitively answer it. It just presents a question to you, right? Mm-hmm. It presents a question that can't be answered. It can be argued either way. But in asking the question, it also points it out that the possibility that he may be a replicant. So, but as I said, I don't think that's important. I think that everybody involved in the movie is in the same situation as replicants. They have a short lifespan. They will be replaced by something, and there's nothing you could do about it. It's just the way it is. So I just wanted to go over that because I thought that was a cool revelation that I was thinking about while watching the movie, and one that I'll go over in my presentation. So having said that, do you have any other things to say about Blade Runner? Either of you?
It's been so long since I've watched it. I don't really remember that much about it other than like some main concepts, so I don't really think I have much to add.
It's the same thing with me. I saw it once on TV many years ago. That's like other than like the basic ideas of the movie, maybe a couple of very specific scenes. That's all I got.
Gotcha. All right. Well, having said that, I did want to even travel back to Alien in a little bit by having a short tribute here to John Hurt, who just passed away this past weekend. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, he is the actor who played the character who had the alien burst out of his chest. Very iconic scene in Alien. He also reprised the role in Spaceballs in a funny take on that. He's the same character, and he has that alien burst out of his stomach again, and he somehow lived through that.
That implies that he survived Alien.
Not again.
Yeah, not again.
Somehow got off of the ship that was abandoned.
Also, he's with his entire crew, who also apparently survived.
Yep.
Like, wait a minute.
But I also wanted to talk about a couple of his other roles. He's famous for a lot of people who are into science fiction right now would know him as the War Doctor or the Lost Doctor in Doctor Who that they didn't talk about for a really long time. He's supposed to be the Doctor that was supposed to take place in between the old series of Doctor Who. And the newest incarnation of it.
Oh, there's a reason why they don't talk about him. It's because the Doctor has been trying to suppress that self of his because of the atrocities he's committed during that life.
Yeah, and I think that was a really cool storyline, and they got a pretty big movie actor to play that Doctor in particular, which I thought was really neat. Apparently he only shows up in 3 episodes.
At least I think it was maybe even less than 3. I don't recall.
I'm not a big Doctor Who guy. I wish I was, because it would be totally something I would be into. But,
It's a really good show.
Yeah, I more on that later, I think. But I also wanted to go over the fact that he's like the dominant political figure in V for Vendetta.
Oh yeah, that was him, wasn't it?
Now
I never realized that.
There's actually a hidden subtext to this. He's also the main character in the 80s version of 1984, the film. So in having him be the big brother character in V for Vendetta is very awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They flipped him from being the main character, the main rebellion against oppression, to being the source of it.
The oppressor, yeah.
Oppressor. I mean, he pretty much plays the exact opposite role. So I thought that was really cool. I didn't even know about that hidden subtext because I've never seen the film version of 1984, any of the filmed versions of 1984. But apparently that one from the 80s is very accurate, and the one that John Hurt is in. So I do want to see that. I think it actually even came out in 1984, which is great. But I do want to see that now in his honor. So I also know that you guys have seen some other movies, so we're kind of going to make this a Reactive Consciousness movie episode.
I guess it still counts because they're new movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, Pyro, you want to take this one or should I?
Why don't you start?
All right, yeah, you know what? I guess I may as well because this is one that's already been discussed. At long last, finally, I have now seen Rogue One, so I get to say that I have still seen every Star Wars movie in theaters, so that's kind of satisfying. I mean, remastered versions of the original trilogy, but, I'll take
Special editions don't count.
But,
wait, did you see the Ewok Adventure movies that were released in Europe in theaters?
Oh, they actually had theatrical releases?
No! Only in Europe. Or the Clone Wars CG movie.
Oh, that's a good point.
In theaters.
I mean, that
you just lied to all of our fans.
I'm a disgrace. Maybe let's just restart the entire podcast so we can not have that part. Vyse, I hope you remembered everything you said. All right, so anyway, yeah, Rogue One, got a few things to say about it. It was definitely a fun movie. I liked it. I would watch it again. I had a lot of fun with it. What other people have said about the movie is true. The characters are relatively shallow. Like you can get a sense of who they are and what they want and everything, but there isn't much to do with them because it's kind of like, all right, look guys, we got to get those plans from the Death Star, go, and then they kind of just do it. So you don't really get like personality quirks or anything like that. They're just kind of like, I'm the pilot, I'm the mercenary, I'm the main character. Like the only one with a real personality was like the droid, who was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I guess it's because like they're, first of all, we know what's going to happen to them, so there's no point necessarily in spending too much time developing relationships with those characters because of how they end up.
Yeah.
In addition, there's so many new characters that it would be unwieldy to do that. But also, they are, for their sake, if someone is really curious about their story, they are releasing books and comics to continue the stories of these characters if you really want to know what their life was like or what their backstory or other things they've done.
One thing I did find a bit disorienting, I mean, you can tell who a character is when you look at him, so there is that. It's not like they're all stormtroopers and I can't tell one from another or something. But it sounds like such a little thing, but it's the names. Like, I can't really remember any of the characters' names. And, like, I know that Lucas had a really sort of like childish way of naming characters. Luke Skywalker, because he flies in space all the time. Han Solo, he's a loner. Grievous, sure is a bad guy. Like, they're really basic names, but credit where credit's due. I remember them. And the names.
Do you remember that Star Killer was he wanted to change his name to Darth Icky?
I mean,
Wait, really?
no, he did famously say that, but I gotta say, I doubt he wanted to change his name to that. That was probably
Well, everybody
Well,
laughed, and
another
his
thing-
face
no, but
remained
that was
serious.
probably like a fuck you to the guy who was just asking him questions. Like, I call him Darth Icky. It's like there's no
Another
way he
thing
was
I have to
serious. Even
mention
Lucas, yeah.
is that one, I'm sure you've watched the old movies several times. Two, these characters are in multiple movies. So
No, but even the
if-
prequel trilogies, I watched the Clone Wars once, and I remember Count Dooku's name, for example, even though that one's a little more out there.
okay, but I'm pretty sure if you watch this movie once more, you'd probably remember more of the names. But I do agree that their
I
names
might
are
remember more of the names, but
not
other
as
than the
obvious.
girl and her father, they don't really push the names very hard. You don't really get characters saying each other's names.
More
And
about
I mean,
the mission
that,
and the
that
theme.
kind of adds
Yeah.
to the fact that they are, even though they're important characters, they are just there to steal the Death Star plans, and that's really it.
No, that's fair.
They all know they're going into it, and they're not going to come out. So
I
can get behind that.
It's my opinion that I don't think it's a truly great movie, but I do think it's a fun one.
It
And
is.
I'm going to
It
stick
is.
by that.
yeah, I think
There-
that's what
there-
it comes down to. Is if you enjoy the movie, then
Mm-hmm.
that's really what you're paying for.
Yeah.
is the
I don't-
enjoyment.
I don't think that it's going to go down in history as being great as the original trilogy or anything, and it certainly won't. But even those movies have a simplistic storyline, relatively speaking.
Sure.
There's not.
I mean, they're kids'
aren't
movies
deep
that adults
movies
can
like-
appreciate.
They aren't deep movies like 2001: Space Odyssey and Blade Runner. There's not much symbolism that you have to worry about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
There's no question of existential questions being asked. But they are fun. It's a caper war movie.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
has fun characters in a familiar setting. I got what I wanted out of it. I mean, it didn't have terrible acting. It had good acting.
Yeah.
It had a couple
Had a
new
decent
characters
story.
that I ended up liking. It had a couple cameos that I enjoyed, and that's all I really wanted out of it.
By the way, I will throw in one more thing because Vyse, you gave your take on Rogue One like a while
Sure.
back, like back when it came out.
With Old Man Stompy, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I was going to bring up Old Man Stompy as well because you guys had a disagreement. You had said that of course there were a bunch of nods to the original trilogy, and they were like they were smoothly integrated, and it's like, oh, okay, I caught that one, cool. And Old Man Stompy vehemently disagreed and said that they were kind of like bludgeoned into you. It is crazy how much I agree with Old Man Stompy on this. Like, there were so many references, it actually was distracting. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I like the movie, but god damn. Like, there
I have to-
like, literally with... one sec, Pyro, I just want to throw in... there's 100 examples, but I'll give one right now. Literally within the first 30 seconds, or if I'm mistaken, then I promise you, within a minute... Like, the second or third shot of the movie, it's like, here's the planet, here's the little village hut the main character and her parents live in, and then the third shot is, like, the camera is centered on, centered on, like, blue milk, and that's the shot. And then it cuts to somewhere else a little later. And, like, blue milk isn't, like, Darth Vader. Like, it's not the most in-your-face Star Wars reference I've ever seen, but that was absolutely a, like, hey, Star Wars nerds, remember that thing Aunt Beru gave to Luke for like a second and people cared about it for some reason even though it was innocuous? We got it. It's here. And I was just like, so, and that shot I feel is representative of the entire movie. Again, it was a fun movie. I liked the movie, but like the entire, like, if you'd never seen Star Wars in your life and Rogue One was the first movie, you've still basically seen everything in the original trilogy except for the plot. You've seen every secondary and ancillary thing it has to offer. And there are some references where even, again, if you've never seen the original trilogy, there are some references that you can actually realize are references. Like, maybe you don't get it, but that had to have been a nod to something. Like, they're relentless with the references.
I just wanted to add that if it wasn't for nostalgia, we probably wouldn't have these movies anyway.
Oh, that's true. But I mean,
So-
but there were so many of them that just felt like, let's see if I can get this one in there. I mean, none of them really bothered
Well, I
me.
heard that the director wanted to add all them, and he was actually cautious not to add too many because of all the ones he wanted to add.
Not cautious
So-
enough.
No,
But-
I'm just saying. Think of all the ones that you are annoyed about, let's say, and there were he was thinking of doing more than that.
I will say this. I was not annoyed by almost any of them, just the fact that there were so many of them. Like, when they're in jail and you could see the little claymation chess set, like, Force Awakens already did that, so that felt kind of redundant. But there's the claymation chess set, but in the same shot it pans across, and there's, like, a hologram of, like, a Twilight dancing girl, like, in Jabba's palace. I'm like, Jesus, I get it. But, like, there were only two specific references that actually kind of irritated me. One of them was the blue milk, because that was, like, they made a point of it. Like, see the blue milk. The other one, though, this one was weird. Like, this one genuinely threw me off. It was when they were walking around in that city, and the main girl accidentally shoulder checked somebody, and it turned out to be...
that was awesome. I thought that was awesome.
That irritated me. Like, it turned out to be that guy. Like, they...
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Exactly. I don't like you either. You just watch yourself. And sure enough, he says, you just watch yourself when he gets hit. I'm like, oh, freaking... Like,
I thought it was dumb too, but part of me was like, okay, this is interesting.
Well, actually, Mr. Ryu made a very, very good point. Because, like, one of the big things in that city is that everybody has to evacuate within, like, 10 seconds or they're going to die. Which means that apparently he did that. How the hell did he get to Tatooine? Like, what?
I thought that too. That was the one. That was like. So I didn't.
He's wanted in 12 systems. He gets around.
I have the death sentence in 12 systems.
I didn't mind that he was there. I was just more curious how he survived because everyone else apparently on the planet seemed to die.
Oh, and actually, there's one more. This didn't bother me as much as it should have, but it kind of got in the back of my head a little bit. It was when Governor Tarkin, not Grand Moff, but Governor, which kind of threw me, because Rogue One wasn't that long before for A New Hope, was it?
Well, it's because he took all the credit for what happened.
Oh, you're right. You're okay, you got me there. But like the part where he says, "You may fire when ready," which is not only what he says in Episode 4, but how he says it, and I'm like, all right.
Well, you know that the actor is dead, right?
No, I know, but like.
So they probably just took the same line from the movie.
No, I mean, fair enough, but what about all the other lines that sounded pretty good that were original? Like, that one felt like a nod, and it was just like, now, one nod I will say that was freaking amazing, that I loved, was, I mean, you knew that Rogue One had to eventually transition into the opening of A New Hope, where they get on that ship, and I kind of just... didn't really see it coming. All of a sudden, like, we gotta get on a ship, and like that was the ship in the opening of A New Hope, and I was like, oh damn, okay, like that felt great. There was one thing that actually bugged me, and this is like Darth Vader had been pretty prominent in the trailers and stuff. One thing bugged me a little bit, even though it was cool. It was the scene where Darth Vader actually starts killing people. And it was like super badass. That was
OG.
It was like the cyborg ninja scene from Metal Gear Solid 1, where you're just like, holy shit, like he's just murdering everybody. Like, on one hand, that scene was pretty cool, but on the other hand, I have a couple problems with it just regarding Darth Vader's character. One of them, it wasn't maddening, like Yoda flipping around and fighting Dooku. It wasn't that far, but like Vader just doesn't seem like that kind of guy. Like, I mean, in the opening of Episode 4, I mean, like, well, toward the end of Rogue One, he's like, I'm going to deal with some guys myself. And he just kills, like, 100, well, I mean, he kills, like, 8, like, rebel, like, just mooks, just the guys with the guns. And, like, it seems like they're beneath him. You know, in Episode 4, he has people for that. You know, a couple stormtroopers died, whatever, and then Vader walks in and they lay the bodies aside for him, and it's just like, damn, this is some bad guy here. But at the end of Rogue One, I know we've all been wanting to see Vader cut loose, but he doesn't seem like the kind to cut loose. So it was cool to watch, but I was kind of like, it felt good that you did it, but I don't know if you really needed to do it. And by the way, even before getting in the ship, just the fact that the rebels had those, like, those suits and helmets on, I was like, oh yeah, there was those rebels. Like, that was pretty cool. One other thing I will say was cool, because it was almost a retroactive reference. Like, it made the movie that was made first a reference, which I thought was really clever, was that there was never a rogue team. You know, the movie's called Rogue One, And, you get all these spaceships like Red 5 standing by, like Gold Leader, but there was never a rogue unit. They established that in the movie Rogue One, because they have to steal a ship. And they're like, what's your call sign? And the guy's like, Rogue One. And it's like, there is no rogue. And it's like, shut up, bye. So what I actually thought was really, really cool about that was that in Empire Strikes Back, when Han saved Luke and they're sleeping like in the Tauntaun in the middle of nowhere in the frozen wastes, some like X-Wing pilot, or no, I think it was a snowspeeder, but some pilot finds them and he identifies himself as Rogue something. So the implication there is that due to the achievements that Rogue One managed to pull off, apparently they did create an official Rogue team. So that's really, really clever. I thought that was a brilliant idea, like mentioning there is no rogue unit, but like apparently there will be later. That was really, really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, so the movie that I recently saw that was also kind of a throwback to an old movie in a way too is Magnificent Seven. And if you don't know, it's based on an old Japanese movie called The Seven Samurai.
One of the best movies of all time.
Yeah, and it's actually really funny because I really wanted to see Magnificent Seven because I like westerns and I like the Seven Samurai movie. But
it's also a remake of another western called Magnificent Seven, I should say.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's right. Yeah, it's a remake of a remake.
Is that
the Magnificent Seven?
Yeah, the Magnificent Seven is a remake of Seven Samurai, and the Magnificent Seven is a remake
of
Magnificent Seven.
Okay. Well, I thought it was really funny because when I was talking about Rogue One, I talked about this thing I read online where someone he was with his girlfriend and she found out like midway through the movie that they all had to die and she started crying. In the middle of Magnificent Seven, I'm like, oh wait, I remember how the Seven Samurai ends up, and I'm like, no, I actually like all these characters. I don't want any of them to die. But I thought it was really cool, and I thought it was I was curious how they would retell the Seven Samurai, I guess you could say, in a Western way. I mean, I didn't see the originals, Magnificent Seven, so I wouldn't know. And I thought it was really cool how they brought it all together and how that all went down.
What'd you think of it?
I really liked it. I thought it was very well done. I think even though you are shown the new characters like without much time, like you really grow to like something about them, even the ones that aren't necessarily as likable. They all have some part about them that you kind of want them to pull through in the end, and you kind of get upset when they might not.
Mm.
So
I want to see it because I'm a big fan of westerns. You guys know that, and I just didn't get a chance to see it. Also, I'm a big Chris Pratt fan, and he's one of the characters.
Yeah,
he's easily likable.
He was my favorite character.
So, a lot of people have said in my actual life that I'm kind of like his character in Community. So,
I mean Parks and Rec.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant. I always get this.
Yeah, I think you'd really like the movie, so I think you should really check it out when you get a chance.
I want to check it out. And I also haven't seen the original Magnificent Seven in a long time, so maybe I'll have a marathon sometime soon. Watching Seven Samurai is like a whole afternoon, though. Like it's a long ass movie.
It's
so
long,
I don't know whether I'll include that.
It doesn't necessarily drag on, but
it's just a long movie.
It feels a lot longer than it is too.
Yeah.
Like I remember I watched the whole thing at Otakon one year, but I felt like I was in the room for like 5 hours when the movie's only maybe 2.5 hours long or whatever.
It just feels like it kind of has a serialized nature to it. It almost feels like a TV show in a lot of ways. So that I think that's what I attribute to it, because there's a lot of segments to the movie, like a lot of full stories within the movie. So
because they have to like meet all the characters and have to give them a reason for joining the group.
Yeah, and so many movies have been based off of that movie. Like A Bug's Life is even based off of that story.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there, it's one of the most copied structures of all time. There's even an anime called Samurai 7 based off.
And
of
there's
it.
a video game that's something similar to that idea as well.
Yeah, it's like a future samurai.
That sounds familiar. I forgot what it was called, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like 7 Samurai 2027 or something like that.
Something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. But, yeah. Did you have anything else to say about that one?
No, I just wanted to bring up how awesome it was and how I really enjoyed the nods it had to at least Seven Samurai. I don't know about the other Magnificent Seven.
Okay. So the movie that I saw this week in theaters, I actually went on another date from a girl that I met on Match.com, which is pretty neat. So we went and saw Split. I actually suggested La La Land, and she was like, "No, let's go see the horror thriller movie." And I was like, "Yes."
Oh wait, this was the M. Night Shyamalan movie, right?
Yeah,
correct. It's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, so you're immediately rolling your eyes.
Well, no, that's the thing. The running joke on the internet is that the biggest twist is that it's actually a good movie.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Well, so I've heard that the main story is okay. It's not great. It's not bad. But the twist makes it an awesome movie, but not for the reasons you'd expect.
I would say that the whole thing's really good.
I know what the twist is, and I thought that was a pretty awesome twist.
I don't want to talk about that
Yeah.
because that's hugely integral to enjoying the film the first time you watch it.
Well, it
So-
is, but it isn't if you don't know what it's talking about, what it's referencing, then you really don't understand why it's important. Like there
Yeah,
is
but I'm
no
not gonna-
twist. There's no twist in the movie if you don't understand the twist.
I'm not going to talk about it. But having said that, because I don't want to ruin anybody's day, because they should go out and see it. But it was so good. It's probably up there ranking with his best movies. Now I'm a big fan of some of his early stuff. Like I really like Sixth Sense, and I think that Unbreakable is probably his best movie.
Yeah, Unbreakable's really good.
And I actually really like Signs quite a bit. But you know, he made some of the like really terrible movies. Like he made The Happening, which is like one of the most boring movies of all time.
Where you can outrun the wind, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like what the hell? And he also made
Lady in the Water.
Well, I haven't even seen that one. That one's controversial. Some people say they love it. Some people say they hate it.
Okay.
So I'm not even passing judgment on that one because that one's divisive. But The Last Airbender is considered one of the worst movies of all time.
Yep.
That's what you get when you turn an entire season into like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
And you
it also
whitewash a whole bunch of characters.
It also treats the source material in the worst way. It totally ruins it.
Mispronounces the main character's name.
Yeah,
oh, good.
I mean, but I do like a lot of things about him. He's a native Philadelphian. And I live 15 minutes from Philadelphia, so like I'm ingrained in Philadelphia culture. A lot of the movie has very specific references to Philadelphia. And even takes place in a very specific place in Philadelphia, which is pretty neat. But James McAvoy's performance was fantastic.
I heard it was
really good. He makes the movie. He's clearly outclasses everybody else in terms of acting. But also has some really good female characters. So, like, female characters in a lot of horror movies tend to be prey, and that's it. And they were the female characters in this that were kidnapped. I mean, that's the whole premise. So I'm not ruining anything there. Are actually individuals and act differently and are smart. And try to get out of different situations on their own merits, and there's a lot to like. Having said that, I'm not a huge fan of how it treats mental illness, but it's an interesting premise and it's really cool. It's about a villain that has dissociative identity disorder, so he has multiple personalities.
Yes, hence Split.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a really cool movie. I really enjoyed it. It kept me on the edge of my seat. Definitely go out and see it. It's a good theater movie. And it makes me look forward to other M. Night Shyamalan movies, which
his next
I didn't
one.
think was ever going to never ever going to say. Though I do like Devil. I don't know if you guys ever saw Devil.
I
think
haven't.
He produced that one. And that one's really good.
That's the elevator one, right?
Yeah,
that sounds
I
right,
thought
yeah.
that one was decent. It's not a perfect movie, but like compared to his movies that he had made around that time,
Honestly,
it's a lot
like
better.
my thought about his movies is, I mean, I know that a lot of people say that after like Sixth Sense, most of his movies went downhill from there. My thought is, I haven't really seen many of his other movies after Sixth Sense. I saw Signs and I saw Unbreakable. I think those are the only ones that I've seen. But from what I've heard, his movies aren't bad. It's just that you always know there's going to be some twist at the end.
That is a problem. Yeah.
That's either ridiculous or dumb or whatever. But overall, the movies aren't horrible.
The best thing I've heard time and time again about him is that he should be making like really good Twilight Zone episodes rather than movies.
Yeah.
He could tell these like a story about trees killing people in about 15 minutes. You know, like he could be making like a short movie with a good twist, or a short story with a good twist. Instead, he has these full budget 2-hour-long movies, so some of them are just going to be clunkers. As a result, because how long can you pad something like that? But this movie needed the time that it used. It didn't.
Okay.
It wasn't too extraneous. In fact, there are no like dangling subplots or anything. In fact, I thought it was well paced, extremely good in that regard. So, having said that, we will be back next week, of course, on Tuesday with another Corrective Consciousness episode. So,
Reactive
thank you
Consciousness.
guys. No,
Well, for Tuesday
Corrective
it's
Consciousness
correct.
Oh,
is
for
Tuesday.
Tuesdays, yes. Sorry, yes. I was half paying attention.
Speaking of corrective,
On my own podcast.
so once again, give us feedback on the new format of the podcast and having a split. But I'm enjoying this, and I like the long form discussion on the current topics. So
Yeah, and then you could say if we have 4 more people, it would be the Magnificent Seven.
Oh.
And then one of us is going to go and do our own thing. And he'll be the Rogue One.
Oof. I was trying to shoehorn a Blade
What are
Runner
we,
plug in
Gene
there. It's
Shalit?
just not working.
And then you'll all chase after me with knives because of my dumb jokes, and you'll all be Blade Runners.
that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was decent.
All right, guys. We will catch you on Tuesday. Have a great week.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.